Splendid.
Splenda?
Truvia.
Okay.
Sweet and low. But no equal. Because that stuff is weird. I don't know why.
All right.
Even though sweet and low tastes the worst of them all, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Not that I would know.
I've had my share of experience with artificial sweeteners. Of course, diet sodas are the worst anyway.
I was raised on Diet Coke, so I don't know.
Poor thing. You ever had Diet Mountain Dew?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it the worst stuff ever?
It's pretty terrible, yeah.
Yeah, see? Hey, we can do a show now.
Oh, we're ready now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Welcome to Star Trek Asterisk, the weekly podcast where we watch Star Trek and talk about it. I am Steve. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Steve.
I'm Zach. I got nothing. I had no prep for this week. I promise I'll have something prepped in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Well, after battling technical issues, we finally watched our 3 episodes for today.
Yeah.
They were the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Episodes were Hyde and Q, followed by Haven and The Big Goodbye. And they were pretty good today.
They were pretty good.
But before we do anything, recently, big news in the Star Trek community. The trailer for the newest movie, Star Trek Into Darkness, has come out. Mm-hmm. And we would like to play that for you and say a few things, just a little bit, to whet your appetite. And yeah, so let's play that, and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
You think your world is safe. It is an illusion. A comforting lie told to protect you. Enjoy these final moments of peace. For I have returned to have my vengeance. So, shall we begin?
Ooh. Fancy schmancy.
What do you think?
So we have this and we have those other 3 frames with Spock in the fire.
Yes. Yeah, right.
From those 3 frames that JJ brought on a Conan that one night.
And there was just a little bit more in the Japanese trailer.
Yeah.
With kind of an iconic thing, really.
The
Spock and Kirk touching hands between glass.
Let's see if we can do this in the frame.
Can we?
You pull back a little bit. Oh, there we go. Man, your hand looks so much bigger than mine.
Well, I think my camera's closer, so.
That's
anyway,
true. Okay.
Yeah, so we got that thing going on in the Japanese trailer. What do you think?
I love it. It's vague enough to not give away anything, but it really draws you in.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of people online. They're saying, "Well, now it looks like all these other stupid superhero movies, and they're ruining Star Trek." So shut the fuck up.
I mean, the movies go in a certain direction, like in general. It doesn't matter what franchise you are. If you
It's the style of the time.
It's the style of the time, exactly.
Hey, guess what? Movies aren't in black and white anymore. Spoiler alert. Sorry, I should have prefaced with that.
Right. But yeah, I think it's great. I think you see a whole lot of destruction on Earth.
Yes.
Destruction of Federation vessels crashing into oceans on Earth.
And then there's that one thing with the Enterprise like rising out of the clouds. That looks cool as hell.
Yeah, it looks
I got to
pretty
get
great.
one of them.
Throughout the entire Star Trek history, we've seen Earth as a basic utopia
Yeah.
and a really idyllic place, and I think it's a good move for Star Trek to kind of challenge that idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah. If you want to see more of my speculations on this trailer, you can go to thegreenasterisk.com, do a search for Star Trek Into Darkness. You'll find the trailer and all of my thoughts on it, including some pictures and stuff like that, and my speculation as to who Benedict Cumberbatch's character is.
Yeah, which by the way, if you want to, you can. And I'll go into more of this later because obviously, but if you want to go check it out in the Green Asterisk app, you can, do it from there if you're using a Windows 8 PC.
Apparently, you can't watch the trailer.
Not inside the block, no.
But yeah, you
It's a
can do
Flash thing.
that.
You know how
Okay,
Flash is weird.
so we got that. Now onto our episodes. The first one, Hyde and Q. Now, this is the first time we've seen Q since the Farpoint incident. And this time he's interrupting the Enterprise on their way to help a bunch of dying people on a planet. And then the cue ball surrounds them. And then what happens? You sound like you look like you have a lot to say about this.
Nope, I'm holding my tongue. You go right ahead.
Okay. They're on their way to help this mining colony where there's been this some accidental explosions that rocked the colony, and now people are dying left and right. And suddenly Q traps them, and he basically says that the Q Continuum has been watching them, and they are impressed with humanity, and they want to give humanity another test. They want to see exactly where humanity is going. So Picard says, no, it's Riker who says, we don't have enough time for your games. And Q obviously picks that up and says, oh, games, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. So he transports a whole bunch of people down to some planet. It could be a real planet. It could be a planet that Q just made up. We don't know. And basically shows up in this French, what was it, like 15th century or
No, I
remember.
think it was like 18th
18th
century.
century French.
Yeah, because
uniforms.
they made the whole they made the comparison with Napoleon.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the French, that's important.
Yes.
He shows up in this French legionnaire outfit or something like that, and kind of explains to Riker what's going. Oh, by the way, Picard is back on the ship and he's all alone, and everything is turned off. So he's just sitting there by himself. Riker is the head man in charge on this mission, and Q explains to Riker that what's going on here is that we're going to play a game, and you basically have to fight the French.
How about a nice game of chess?
Yes, and so while Q and Riker are talking about that, Yar resists. She says, "No, we're not gonna play your game" or whatever, and Q says that is unacceptable and teleports her off that rock, and puts her in the quote unquote penalty box. Turns out the penalty box is on the Enterprise.
It's the bridge.
It's the bridge.
The bridge where no one can, where Picard obviously can't open doors.
Right, yeah.
For whatever fucking reason.
And but once everything is settled, they go back to that planet, and we find Worf sneaking around trying to spy on the French, who we find out are these pig creatures. And Riker is basically, you know, taking command or whatever.
Yeah, he's got to. Well, he's ranking officer. He's got to
Right.
take care of all the. I mean, like literally every bridge person except for Picard and Tasha because she's now apparently
Yeah.
playing hockey. Everybody, all the other bridge officers are on this planet. They're under attack.
Yeah. Yeah. So, meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, Q is talking to Picard, and they have this kind of back and forth talking about Shakespeare quotes, and Picard is talking about how wonderful and great the human race is, and and Q is like, all the galaxy's a stage, all the men and women are merely players. He's saying that we have to test humanity to find out how great they are.
Even though he already told Riker, he goes, "Hey, spoiler alert: humans are actually really cool. They're probably going to be better than us someday, but don't tell anybody I said that."
Right. And so after Q gets irritated by Picard, he just leaves and goes back onto the planet and tells Riker, "Hey, guess what? I gave you some powers."
Yeah, you know that stuff that I do? You can do that too. Just cause.
Right. So meanwhile, while the French guys are attacking, they literally attack this time. Like they're shooting their muskets. They hit Worf with the butt of their weapon.
Which, by the way, we find out their muskets, they're not actually they're not artillery muskets. They actually
Yeah.
shoot phaser beams.
Exactly. Yeah. And something that we can all applaud is that they stab Wesley in the gut.
Oh, but then Riker saves him.
Yeah. That was pretty much the last straw. Once they stab Wesley in the gut, Riker's like, "No!"
No.
The cue ball force field thing
Cue
falls
ball.
down. The French are blocked by it, and Riker with his new powers
goes like,
puts everybody. Yeah, yeah. Does this.
He does this, and everybody goes up to the bridge.
Yeah,
And then Picard and Yar are up there, and they're like, "Hey, where'd you guys come from?" Well, we were with Riker, but he's still down on the planet.
yeah.
And then Riker comes up, and then
Well, Q has a word with Riker down on the planet.
oh yeah, that's when he talks to him, yeah. And Riker's all laughing at him and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when he tells him that yeah, human beings are actually kind of cool, and you guys are probably going to be better than us someday, but whatever. Go use your new Q powers. And Riker's like, okay, buddy, whatever you say.
Right.
So then he goes back up on the bridge, and everybody's like, hey, what happened? And Riker's like, oh, I can do stuff now. And Picard's like, huh, well, that's interesting. I don't really know what to say about it. He's like, yeah, I don't really know either. No one's ever offered to give me godlike powers before.
Right. So they do what any Starfleet officer would do. They just continue on their mission.
They just keep doing what they're doing.
They go to that planet and save a few people and, heal the sick, patch up the wounded, find a dead girl, and ask Riker to bring her back to life. And
Riker says no. He actually made a promise to Picard that he would not use his new Q powers. Even as tempting as it would be, he would not do it. And
because of the disreputable source, really.
well, yeah, obviously. I mean, there's temptation to use this newfound power, but that would take humans off of their natural course,
Right.
to learn and grow.
Right.
And that would, he wouldn't want to do that.
It's kind of the butt end of the Prime Directive.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, I can't do it. So they go back up to the ship, and Riker goes up on the bridge. And he's like, okay, we got to do something about this because I should have never made that promise to you. I could have saved this little girl's life. And he's pretty upset about it at this point. Yeah. And by this time, he's like, maybe I should use these Q powers. And then Q shows back up and is like, oh. And he's in his little robes and everything. And he has to put on a show. And he says, well, Riker, of course you could help your friends if you really want to. He's like, I just want them to be happy. He's like, well, then go make them happy. So he starts,
Well, Picard actually agrees. He
and
says,
Picard's
okay,
like,
yep, go right ahead.
okay, fine. You know what? If you want to do this, you go right ahead, buddy. So he does, and Beverly goes and grabs Wesley and is like, yeah, no, I think we're leaving. And he's like, wait, hold on. And then he goes, wah. He goes, wah. And then Wesley is suddenly a man.
Yeah.
And doesn't really look like a man, but whatever. The point is, he's a man. And
It doesn't look like today's Will Wheaton at all. But
no. So he's all grown up and everything, yada yada. And then Wes is like, okay, this is kind of cool, I guess. And Beverly's like, but I want him to grow up. And then suddenly there's this like crazed Klingon woman that shows up next to Worf, and they start fighting, and he throws him down like he do, and she comes up crawling up to him, and he's like, okay, I don't want this. And they're like, is this your idea of sex? He's like, not with them. I'm not with these guys anymore. I'm with you guys. These guys are weird. So he doesn't do it. And then Riker goes, well, maybe I can, Geordi, maybe I can help you. And he goes, take off your visor. And he does, and he goes, wah, wah, with his hand in front of his face. And Geordi's eyes are normal. He can see things. Apparently, Tasha was as beautiful as he imagined. He's got a terrible imagination. So, and he thinks about it for a second. He's like, I don't like this, though. I don't like the way this happened.
yeah, yeah.
He's like, this just doesn't feel right to me.
Not natural.
He's like, please just put me back the way I was. And so he does. And Wesley's like, yeah. He's like, I think I just want to do my own thing like I normally would. And then Riker's like, well, God, now I feel like an idiot. And Picard says, yeah, you should, because you are.
Yep.
And he decides that, this isn't something he wants to do. He says, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do it. And Q's like, well, fine. Then just whatever. You guys suck. And Picard's like, hey, we had a bet. And Q's like, oh, no, we didn't. He's like, oh, yes, we did.
And the
I don't.
Continuum knows about it.
And he's like, and the Continuum knows, I don't think they would be very happy if you reneged on your bet. And then you hear like a wah, wah, wah of the Continuum, and they're all getting angry and stuff, and Picard just smiles, and Q's like, no, I didn't mean it. Okay, I'll leave you alone. And then he disappears.
Yep.
And
that's
then,
it.
And then everybody goes back to, everything's back to normal, and that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. So, go off on Q again.
That son of a bitch. I swear to God, he is so pompous. He's so full of himself. And it makes me wonder, is everyone that's a Q like him, or is he the exception? To me, he seems like if they're going to be like this race of beings that are so powerful and everything, he seems like the child of the bunch. He's like Q reminds me a lot of Trelane.
Yeah.
He does, because he has all this power, and he plays, and he doesn't, he uses humans as toys, as playthings.
Yeah.
And it just...
Two things about that.
Okay.
One, in the whole history of Star Trek, screen history anyway, we see Q Junior,
Yeah.
we see
Whatever the girl's name was.
There's a female Q,
There's a girl, yeah.
and there's also another Q who's crazy and was locked in this meteorite or something like that. That's in Voyager. They all seem to be a little bit arrogant, but that comes with having a lot of power. The crazy one is, he's a little more cool about it. So I mean, I don't know. They could be all that way, and the crazy one is the exception.
Yeah.
But Trelane, in the book Q Squared, he is actually, the book says that he is a Q. And and the Q that we know is his godfather.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That that RQ is a lot like Trelane.
Right. And yeah.
Trelane was. You can kind of tell that it's kind of like a first draft of a Q for Roddenberry. But this episode in itself is kind of interesting though,
It is.
because it gives a normal human the abilities of a Q, obviously godlike powers, and because they've grown so advanced, it gives them they give a good reason why they shouldn't have these powers so quickly. It kind of explains to newcomers why the Prime Directive exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of newcomers to Star Trek with the Next Generation,
Sure.
and then it also explains how advanced we have become, in that we were rejecting these powers for a good reason. That we know we shouldn't have these powers.
Yeah.
So I mean, it does a lot for a development
A future of mankind sort of deal.
for the development of the universe that we're living in here in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that. I think that sums up pretty well.
Yeah.
The next episode was Haven.
Haven.
You want to go off on this one?
No,
'Cause,
you.
I mean, you got the
No, I know,
got the
but
hots for.
all right, all right. So, so our good guys are on their way to this planet Haven, and they're going to go relax and just because this place is supposedly like awesome. Like
Yeah.
this place is amazeballs,
Right.
apparently, for trying to relax and everything. And Picard's like, "Yeah, we're going to go relax and have a nice time, and it'll be great." So they get there, and then suddenly there's something that's coming up in the transporter. And they're like, "What?" And it's this talking head silver box thing. And the Miller family is on their way. And it's like, "What?" And then the box pops open, and there's jewels and all kinds of like valuables and whatnot. Okay. And Troy's like, "Oh." And they're like, "What?" She goes, "Well, you know how humans sort of have a dowry for a wedding, you know, when the bride gets married?" And it's like, "Yeah, this is sort of the same thing. Like, who's getting married?" And she's like, "Me." So it turns out the way that Betazoid customs are is they sort of keep it in the family. Not incestually,
Right.
but when people okay, in this case, the guy that she's going to marry is the son of like the brother or the best friend
Yeah.
of her father, her human father.
Yeah.
So because they, you know, it's again the two guys were best friends, so the son is going to end up marrying, you know, Deanna.
Now, do we learn whether her father is dead or just out of the picture? Or?
I think he's out of the picture. Doesn't he show back up at one point?
I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I think he's just out of the picture because looks on as a kind of a, you know, slutty slut.
Yeah. Well.
Well, so anyway, so the Millers beam on board, and hooray for them, they're there, and Picard's like, yes, go to your quarters. So they go off, and here comes Mama. Mrs. Troy, as she's affectionately called, shows up with her manservant and her bag, whatever. And so she starts going down, and as soon as she gets on board, she starts. And Deanna warned the captain. She's like, "My mother's eccentric, okay? I have to warn you." Well, she's more than eccentric. She's just out there, okay? This woman's crazy. She's like batshit crazy, but fun.
Yeah.
So
That's an important part to add.
she's fun. And she gets on, and the first thing she does is she, you know, Deanna says, "Hi, mother," and she's like, and she telepathically says to her, she's like, "Now don't use your mouth to speak." She's like, "You know better than that. You were raised better than that." And she opens her mouth again and goes, "Hello, mother." She's like, "Ah, seriously, come on."
It's great because it's like a Spanish mother trying to tell her English-speaking kid to speak
It,
Spanish.
it is. It really is. It's hilarious. So they start. They head towards her quarters and whatnot, and already Luxwana is starting her shit. She's already being a pain in the ass. She wants things to be a certain way, and yada yada yada. Well, whatever.
Yeah. This is interesting. Here's what I don't get. Loxana wants everything to be Betazoid, obviously.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller wants everything to be human.
Yes.
But it was Mrs. Miller who offered up a dowry in the Betazoid tradition, which was the first thing we saw.
Yes.
So, I mean, did she just give in on that particular thing and then the rest is all human? Or, I don't know.
Who knows? So, Deanna's like, yeah, she goes, Mom, I'm starting to get real sick of your shit right now.
Yeah, basically.
And she's like, oh, whatever. So they get ready to have this little wedding banquet thing. And, when the guy got there, he looked at Deanna and he was quiet. He didn't say a word to her. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, here's this flower. It's pretty and it changes the color based on the person's mood who's holding it. And so it's a
mood
pretty
flower.
flower. It's a mood flower. It looked like a rose, kind of. But it's a mood flower. Because apparently we have those on different planets. And so, okay, great. And she's like, I'm not what he expected. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not what he expected. He expected something different, and I'm not that. So that's all I got. What do you want from me? So the wedding banquet, they're there, and Luxwana starts to argue with the Millers, or specifically Mrs. Miller, about the way that everything should go. Because Mrs. Miller's like, hey, Captain Picard, well, you're here. You could do the ceremony. He'd be like, I'd be honored if everybody wants to do that. And Luxwana's standing there. She's like, everybody does not want to do that, so there. And that starts this whole thing where they argue all throughout dinner. And they go back and forth and back and forth. And then the manservant's back there not speaking a word. And he keeps hitting the little gong.
He's getting drunk back
He
there.
is
Yeah.
drunk. He is. He really is. And Luxwana's like, well, we're going to do Betazoid stuff. And Mrs. Miller's like, oh, no, the hell we're not. And she goes, hey, you like pets, right? And she's got like this pet vine thing, this vine creature that's on her arm. And it starts to wrap around Mrs. Miller and she freaks out. And then finally, at one point, Deanna has had enough. And she goes, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm out. Mother, you're a pain in the ass. And she storms out. So this is after Riker has just seen enough. And he's like, you know what? I can't do this. You guys have fun. I'm out.
He's kind of like heartbroken, really.
He is because he's still got really strong feelings for Deanna.
Yeah.
And here she is set up to be married to this other guy. So he's out. He can't handle this. Well, he leaves, and a few minutes later, Deanna gets pissed off and she leaves. She goes and finds Riker on the holodeck, and they start talking. And he's like, I still care about you very much. And she's like, well, there are different levels of caring, especially for Betazoids. She's like, and I know it's kind of hard for you to understand as a human because that's not the way you guys think. And he's like, well, it still upsets me a little bit because you're marrying this guy, and he sort of just came out of nowhere. And then he comes out of nowhere, walks into the holodeck in the middle of their conversation, and he's like, yeah, awkward turtle. And he's like, oh, is this the guy that wants to be the captain? And she's like, yeah, this is the guy. And he's like, hi. And everybody's awkward for a minute. And Riker's like, you know what? If you two want to do this and you want to be happy, fine, so be it, whatever. And then he leaves, and her and the Miller boy talk about it for a few minutes. I love it. It's like a farm. Well, right about that time, her and that Miller boy started talking, and they decide, you know what? Fine, we'll go through with it. Well, he has these drawings, okay? He's ever since he was a kid, he's had visions of this woman, this blonde-haired, curly-haired woman, and this is the woman he always expected he would end up with. That's why when he showed up and Deanna was there, he looked kind of confused and sort of disappointed because that's not who he had imagined. So he decides, well, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try to be happy, make her happy. everybody's happy. Okay, big whoop. Well, right about that time, Haven calls back and says, "Hey, we have a problem." And they say, "What?" "There's a ship that got out of our Stargate, unauthorized." Okay, we think it may be a threat. And Picard's like, "Okay, we'll take care of it. And if it comes to it, we hope it doesn't. But if it comes to it, we'll defend you if necessary. No big deal." They go after this ship, and it's this old civilization. What's the name of the race?
Trillions.
The Turellians, yes. The Turellians, these are this last Turellian ship. Everybody thought they had died out about 8 years ago. But there's this one ship that's left. And it turns out that everybody on the ship carries this disease that killed out the rest of their race. And it's a very powerful, potent disease. In fact, if they get to Haven and land and get out, they can infect everybody there and kill everyone, ruining this beautiful planet, this utopian sort of planet. So the people back on Haven are like, "Look, you've got to do something about this. We can't have them here." So Picard's like, "All right, fine." They get the ship in the tractor beam, so they can't, and they start pulling it away from Haven, and then they actually hail the Enterprise, and they're like, "Hey, look, we're not trying to cause trouble. You know, we hear about this planet, and it's got this, these mystical healing properties. We just want a nice little corner by the sea to where we can sort of live out our lives." And we look, and Deanna looks on the screen, and there's this woman that's exactly the woman that Wyatt, the Miller boy, has been drawing all of his life. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Bah?" So then Wyatt shows up, and he's there. And the folks on the other end are like, "Oh, my God, Wyatt, you're here." And they're like, and he's like, "What?" Like, "You promised you would be here." They're like, "Huh?
What?
What the fuck are you bitches babbling about?" Well, he goes and he talks to Luxwana because, being a Betazoid and having, telepathic and empathetic powers, he goes and sort of seeks her advice on the subject. And she goes, "It's actually a lot simpler than humans make it, but everything is connected in like a collective consciousness. So every living thing is connected to everything else." It's very zen, the way she explains it. And, you two were obviously connected very deeply. You just never outwardly, knew it. That's why she knew who you were, and that's why you've been drawing these pictures of her all your life. And he decides he can't go through with this thing. Goes and tells his parents, "Hey, you guys be good. I'm leaving." And they're like, "What?" He goes and takes some medical supplies, and he hauls ass. He goes to the transporter, beams over. His mother runs up on the bridge and goes, "Get him back. What are you doing?" And Deanna's like, "He can't come back now. It's too late. He's over there with them. He's infected.
He's infected.
He's done." And he's there on the viewing screen, and he's like, "Look, Mom, this is what I want. Okay? I came here on my own." Which, by the way, there are drawings of him on their ship.
Yeah.
Because she knew who he was.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is what I want. This is what will make me happy." And they're like, "Well, you know what? We don't actually need to go down to Haven now. We came, we got what we came for. We now know this is what drew us here." Mm-hmm. And so they go off. The Millers leave. And the dad, with his carpet towel, says, "Hey, keep the chest. You'll need it someday." And Luxwana makes some remarks about Picard wanting to do nasty things to her. But she's like, "Nah, I'll wait until later." And Picard's like, "Go away." When this begins a very long and complicated relationship between Luxwana and Picard.
Yes.
Where she comes on to him and he has to resist even though he secretly really wants her.
Yes.
And she leaves and everybody's happy, and that's the end of the episode. Wow, I did the whole thing.
Congratulations. That was pretty great.
Thank you. I got all the details in, too.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm 1 for 1.
Oh, man. No, but it would have to be really awkward if Picard actually did start to date and eventually marry Loxana
Oh my God.
with Deanna on the bridge.
Oh, that would be so weird. And like every episode, you'd hear like there'd be a shot of Deanna, and you could hear her mother's voice, and she'd just roll her eyes, and you could hear her responding telepathically, "Mother, go away. I'm busy. I'm working. Go away."
Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine that though?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if your mom like was with you at work all the
Yeah.
time?
Well, Loxana would just be back in Picard's quarters and,
I know.
sending messages.
Back and forth all day long. It'd be like if your mom married your boss
Yeah.
and was sending you emails all
Yeah.
day long at work.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You gonna come up here and hang out? Why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? Did you do this right? No, God.
Oh man, I'm glad that didn't happen.
No kidding.
So anyway, this starts. Ooh, whoops.
Oh, watch out there.
This starts off our understanding of Betazoid.
We meet
tradition.
our first other Betazoid.
Yes.
We meet Deanna's mother, most importantly.
Yes.
And we learn how quirky she is.
Yes.
And it answers the age-old question, whatever happened to Nurse Chapel?
I think she just got beamed into the computer.
You think so? Is that what happened to
Yeah.
her? That explains it.
Yeah.
I really liked this episode, though. It
Yeah.
was different, It's not like the standard adventure sort of deal we normally
Right.
do.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
It kind of sets up like this is how we learn how Betazoids get married.
Yeah.
We learn that they're naked in the ceremony.
They are stark naked. Everybody is naked in the ceremony.
Yeah, and we like I said, we learn a little bit about Betazoid tradition.
We learn a little bit more background information about
Yes.
Deanna
and Riker.
And Riker. We get some character development there, which is really good.
The only other place we heard their relationship or their past relationship mentioned was the pilot episode,
Yeah.
and we never really got much of it besides that.
Right. Yeah.
So we didn't really, we still don't know what really went on. We just know that they were together once, and now they're not.
And now they're not.
We
yeah.
learned in this episode it's because of Riker's duty that he has to perform. Like he wants to be a
He wants to
ship's
be a captain, and
someday.
he doesn't want to get in a romantic relationship like that, something so close to where there's a lot of risk involved there.
Yeah, right. Which is odd because this particular Enterprise allows families on the ship.
See,
so
yeah, that's the other thing. That's something I always wondered about.
Yeah.
Is because, well, yeah, okay, he doesn't want anything to happen, but people are there. So what difference does it make?
well, I think to be fair, he wants to be a captain, and obviously the ship already has a captain.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
when he eventually moves on to a captain position,
He may be on a ship that doesn't allow families on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But anyway, we learned that motivation, we learned that history, and that's something good. That's good. That lasts through the whole series,
Yeah.
even when Deanna starts to go after Worf. And
Yeah, let's not go there. That I still don't understand to this day.
yeah, well, we'll get there.
Yep. I think that was about it for that one.
That's it. Oh, we got a special guest star Armin Sherman as the box.
As the box.
Yeah,
Yep. That's that.
that's that. The next episode was The Big Goodbye.
Oh, this is kind of sad.
It gets sad at the end, yeah.
It does get sad at the end.
This is where we learn a lot about how the holodeck functions.
Or malfunctions. in
Or
this case.
malfunctions. Yeah. Picard is trying to prepare for this diplomatic mission where he has to talk to some insect-like aliens. Excuse me, that they didn't have the budget to actually show, so we could hear them, but we couldn't see them. So he's trying to learn their language because apparently they're really touchy about their language and they have to get it just perfectly, and it has to be the captain of the ship that delivers the message.
Oh my God. And there's
So
yeah, it's really it's kind of a pain in the ass. As a
yeah,
matter of fact, they said the last time somebody got tried this and got it wrong, it was like a 20-year rift between them.
yeah.
I mean, really?
It sucks, but
But it's
it's
how people
Picard's
that's how they are.
it's Picard's job to do it.
Yep.
So he's trying to learn it and trying to learn it, and he's been practicing all day. Deanna Troy says, "You know what? You need to take a break. You can just go to the holodeck and play Dixon Hill."
Yeah. Go play Space Paranoids or Dixon Hill, one of the two.
So he goes over and yeah, that's a good idea. He goes to the holodeck and opens up the Dixon Hill program, and he's in his Starfleet uniform. He walks into this
1941
40s.
San Francisco.
Yeah. And people automatically comment on how odd he looks in his uniforms, like he's a busboy or something.
Yeah, it's like, what'd you do? Lose a bet?
Yeah. So basically, he finds out what's going on, and he talks to this girl who says, "I think someone's going to kill me." And he kind of talks to her about taking on the case, but then he leaves. Like he never really takes on the case.
Right.
Before he leaves, someone knocks on the door, but he never actually sees him. So he goes, and the guy who was knocking on the door comes in the office and says, "Hey, where'd you go?" And then outside, he turns off the holodeck, and that's it. That's basically the first act. So he is talking to the senior officers about how great this program is and how the holodeck is so unreal. Like he's never seen a holodeck before
Yeah.
in his entire life.
Well, I think the holodeck is still a new technology for
It's-
them, because we see it in. I know they talk about it the one time in the animated series, but I still think holodeck technology is pretty new.
For starships, yeah, it is new.
Yeah,
I like to think that it's on Earth in some places, but
I imagine it would be.
to be fair, I don't
There are a
know.
lot of other checks and balances in place that would be on Earth and there wouldn't be in a starship because of it being
I suppose.
stationary and being, I mean,
Yeah,
you got to think, you got Starfleet Command down there. You got to have some kind of protection.
yeah, true. But anyway, he's explaining about how awesome it is, and he kind of plans to go back, just for the fun of it,
Just for the halibut.
just to play out the game. And he wants to bring along some other guys. Who's the red shirt he brings along?
Oh, it's some historian guy.
Some historian, yeah.
Yeah, he's like interested in 20th century Earth history.
Whalen, Mr. Whalen.
Yeah, that's
So-
the guy.
He brings Mr. Whalen along, and Data shows up in the sharp 40s suit and hat, and they go in and start playing along. They're on the streets of San Francisco. They almost get hit by a car, and
I'm walking here.
they go by the newspaper stand and find that this girl that Picard was talking to earlier as Dixon Hill has died.
Yeah, she was murdered. And one of the investigators, one of the detectives, like the actual cops, comes up and starts giving him a hard time.
Right.
And it turns out he's the suspect for the murder because the last person that she saw was him, and she still had his card in her pocket.
Yeah. And meanwhile, back on the bridge, this insect species calls back, expecting to find Picard, and only Riker is available. So, Riker does the best he can.
They're like, you're not the captain, and they hang up on him.
Yeah, and so Riker says, "Okay, someone's got to go find Picard." So Crusher gets all dressed up in her 1940s garb and goes down to the holodeck and finds that Picard is being questioned. Picard is in his in this interrogation room with the police, and the police are trying to get information out of him, but obviously nothing is happening because, well, at the time of the murder, Picard was on the Enterprise.
Right.
So, meanwhile, outside the alien race sends a probe to the Enterprise, and the probe runs throughout the whole ship and causes everything to malfunction for a little bit, but especially the
The
holodeck.
holodeck.
So everyone is trapped in there, but they don't know it yet. The only ones who know it are Geordi and Wesley. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
They find out anyway.
They find, yeah.
Oh, it's Geordi, because Geordi goes down to try to
Right,
find
because
Picard.
Riker's like, go find them. They're down on the holodeck. And
Yeah.
he's like, I can't find them. He's like, what do you mean you can't find them? Like, they're not there. He's like, they're on the holodeck. He's like, I know. That's where I am. The holodeck's not working.
Yeah.
So then Wesley goes down to check it out with him.
Yeah, because Wesley has apparently read all of the things that there are to read about the holodeck. So, because he's such a boy genius, he goes down and saves the day. Well, tries to save the day. Meanwhile, inside the holodeck, they're confronted by these gangsters, and Mr. Whalen is shot. And oh my gosh, this fake stuff actually almost killed someone. And that's where we get into some holodeck safety protocol issues, which I'll get into later.
I know you will.
But oh my gosh, Waylon is hurt. We have to fix him, and now the door won't show up.
Oh, yeah. They keep yelling for the computer,
Yeah.
and there's no door. Just doesn't work.
They this guy Sirius Redblock comes in and
They're looking
starts
for
taking
the
over.
item.
Yeah.
He comes in looking for the item. And they don't know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, but they play along. They say, okay, we'll find your item, but you have to help us save Waylon. Meanwhile, this red black guy, he's this rough and tumble gangster guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to take any shit from anyone. So he, acts like he's in charge, and then, but Picard kind of explains, okay, if you help us, I've got a better item that I can go and get. So Red Block takes this into consideration.
He's like, all right, you gotta. We'll try it your way.
Right. And I forgot what happens then. He basically, at one point, he instructs this other guy to shoot Dr. Crusher.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's when Picard says that he has this other guy and this other item, but he has to promise not to shoot Crusher and to help them save Waylon.
Right.
Meanwhile, back on the bridge, the Riker tries to contact this race again, but they only send some like screeching sounds back, and Worf is really upset by this for some reason. They zoom in on Worf.
Worf is so sensitive. He needs to calm the fuck down.
He does, but he's a Klingon, so.
Well, yeah, good point.
Meanwhile, Wesley is down with LaForge trying to fix the problem, and Wesley says the problem can be fixed, but if it's not done exactly the right way, the holoprogram will abort, and everyone inside the holodeck could vanish for some reason.
Go ahead. We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about it. Just go on.
Okay, so Riker says, okay, fine, we need to get them out of there, so just go ahead and do your thing. So inside the holodeck, Picard is still trying to explain what's going on. At this point he's saying, okay, we're actually from a ship. We're from the future. I'm not Dixon Hill. I'm Picard. You need to listen to us. You're all, and Picard or Data says, you guys are all figments. Like you're all fictitious characters, and they obviously, I mean, they don't take it very well. But what can they do? They actually are
Yeah,
fictitious characters.
pretty much.
So eventually the door shows up, and Wesley has saved the day again.
Apparently.
So Picard says, "Look, there's the door. Just let us leave."
And you can walk through into our world.
Right.
You can. He's like, the guy's like, so you mean that like stuff like us can go back and forth between our world and yours? He's like, yeah, go ahead. And so him and his little gangster buddy walk outside, and they're like, yeah, this is really cool. This is great. And then they start disintegrating because they don't have the holo projectors to keep them solid anymore.
Right.
And then they're
So
gone.
they're gone. Meanwhile, there's this cop from the program. He's also in Dixon's office at that point. And after these two guys are done away with, they take Waylon to the sick bay, fix him up, and then Picard turns to this cop, and the cop is like, "Well, wait a minute. When you leave, does all this stuff go with you? Am I real?" Like
He starts to become self-aware just a little bit.
just a little bit self-aware, and it's really sad because
It kind of is.
Picard's like, I have no idea. I don't know. This guy has a wife and kids at home apparently, and he doesn't know if he's going to be able to see them once Picard leaves.
Yep.
So apparently Picard, there's nothing else he can do. He leaves, and the program's gone, and that's the big goodbye.
Yeah. And sad times were had by all.
Yeah, well. So you tell us what you think about this episode.
I thought it was a good episode,
Yes.
and the way the holodeck works kind of reminds me of the whole thing from last week when we were talking about Picard beaming out just his energy out into the energy cloud. I know you have problems with hollow matter and some of the ways that it works, or the ways that it's supposed to work, or whatever. This is something I looked up, and it actually makes sense. Some of the hollow matter is like just hollow matter, and some of it is replicated matter. Depending on the safety settings, what kind of interaction is needed, etc.
Yeah.
And when safeties are off, hollow matter can be changed into replicated matter just as an energy form change. Okay, that sort of makes sense. So when you remove safety protocols, or if there's a glitch and it removes the safety protocols for it, that hollow matter becomes live. It becomes actual replicated matter, which is physical, and that can cause harm. That makes sense. Because there are certain things, like with the hollow matter, you can touch certain things, and I honestly don't think the hollow matter you could get the same sensation as you could with like standard replicated matter, which would explain things like when Wesley fell into the water and he came out still wet.
Yeah.
That could have actually been replicated water that when he fell in, it came out with him because of that.
Sure.
So I'm just playing devil's advocate.
What do you think about the story, though? The story is pretty.
The story is great.
No matter what devices you use to tell the story, this is a classic.
It is
next generation story.
It really is. This is the kind of stuff that makes next gen, what it is.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of stuff we get used to and we see more of as the series progresses.
Right.
We're starting to move out of like the crappy part of season 1.
Sure.
And we're moving into more mature storyline development. Next Gen is starting to get its own identity as a series, and this is again, like you said, this is a classic Next Gen story, just in the way that it's told and how it really reveals the way a lot of the characters interact and respond to their situations.
And they use some really good period sets.
They did that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It looked great.
Like we make fun of when they go to a planet and there's like a green sky and
Yeah,
some
but this
obviously
is,
fake.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
this is kind of like the stuff that, and you know, that I know that it's the sort of the same inspiration, but you see, when we were watching Enterprise,
Hmm.
you know, um, and what was it, like the 1990s that they ended up in, or the 1980s or something like that.
At what time? At what point?
There was one point
Oh,
where,
were they chasing the Zindi into
I think
the
so,
time?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, when it was
in the
it
'90s, I
was
think.
Archer and T'Pol, they were together.
Oh, it was
It was like
the
our current day,
yeah, our current day, which
like
is
the
like
2000s.
2007 or something like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
but you know, it's, you see stuff like that, and you kind of think back to next gen, and this is the point where they started doing the different periods and doing it well. You know, you see stuff in the original series like the Western set, you know, where they
sure.
did the Wyatt boys,
Yeah,
or the Earp boys rather. I'm sorry,
right.
and it's very similar, but it's not the same. You
Yeah,
know.
right.
Then there was things like the original series movies, especially four,
Yeah.
you know, where they go back and they're in like 1980s San Francisco.
Hmm.
And again, it's similar. It's in the way that it works related to next gen, but it's still, there was still like an element. It's still kind of cheesy then.
Okay,
Now
I can see that. Yeah,
it feels more genuine. You know what I mean?
true.
It feels more realistic.
Hmm.
And it was
I
probably
like it.
because at that point it was an '80s movie, so it had that sort
Yeah,
of '80s, you know, feel to it. And
yeah. That's probably a big part of it, actually.
yeah,
Um,
but now, you know, with now that we're in a series with this, I think they did some really true reproductions, and excellent set design.
yes, very good. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okie doke. Well, then don't.
But yes, but here's the thing I have about hollow matter.
Okay.
Whether or not you can change it back to replicated matter, that's cool. That's fine. I have no problem with there being replicated matter on the holodeck. But if you have replicated matter on the holodeck, you just call it what it is. It is replicated matter, and you can take it out and you know mess with it however you want. In this episode, obviously we haven't you know retconned our way into how the whole holodeck works. So there are
Yeah.
some inconsistencies with how it works. Like when these guys walk out and disappear, that is a glaring inconsistency with when Picard walks out and there's still lipstick on his cheek.
Right. No, yeah.
And
I
here's okay. So if you have a okay, he got the lipstick on his cheek by this woman kissing him. The kiss would have needed to would have needed to have been yeah that works
yes.
would have needed to have been replicated matter